All right. Good morning, everybody. Apologize for being a minute or so late. Good to see y'all on the call. Brian, my only video participant. Okay, looks like we are filling the room. This is awesome. Okay. I'll do my I'll do my standard request. If you have the capacity to turn your video on, it always makes for a more enjoyable Zoom. If you're, hey, Norm, well, even with Norm, it's still more enjoyable, especially with that mustache. Woo. Good deal. All right. Thank you for being on the call. Today, it's going to be a little bit of a departure from what we normally cover, which is just into contracts, and it's going to be more on the negotiation side of things. So I hope that helps you. Let's see. So one of the things I wanted to start off with is, can I just get this over with? All of you Utah fans, you can take your shots at me today. I drove 20 hours back and forth to watch my USC Trojans lose on a last-second field goal in the Coliseum, and it was sad. Oh well, it's a football game. Actually had almost my entire family there, and we made up for it with some really good times. So Savannah, I know you're on the call here somewhere.
I am.
Yeah, there you are. Yeah, well, I told Savannah we couldn't be friends anymore because she didn't even wait like the obligatory 24 hours to start rubbing it in. I mean, it was almost immediate the night of. So
Sorry.
it's okay. I like the Utes. I just love USC. All right. Also, Susan, do you want to take 2 seconds and introduce who your compatriot is there on screen? Oh, I'm not getting your volume for some reason. You are unmuted, but can't hear you. Anyway, can I do the intro then? So there you go. We can hear you now. Oh, nope, still not working. So Susan is doing some training of Marianne, who is going to be our new OM and TC out of our South Ogden office. So we're happy to have you on board. And Norm's really excited. I just wish I never saw that dance. We'll just call you Cabbage Patch Norm from now on. All right, now that we have those out of the way, can I just throw it to you guys? Is there anything that you're seeing of interest in the market in the past week or two? Nothing interesting at all. It's just been fantastic.
Continuing. Can you hear
Go ahead,
me?
Bill. Yeah, I got you. Go ahead, Bill.
Just a continuation of the slowness for the upper end stuff,
Yeah. Yep.
but that's nothing new.
That sounds like a
Nothing new.
physical exam.
Say that again.
That sounds like a physical exam.
Okay, Norm. We're gonna.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
We got I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Ready to
Kyle.
finish it? I was just gonna say I track the numbers every week. I come in Monday morning and track the numbers, and just seeing how the inventory down here has been kind of going up, but the pendings have been staying about the same. And last week, new listings dropped. They're usually around 100 a week, and they went down to 72 with 69 pendings. And our overall inventory actually dropped. Again, it started around, even hovering around the low 800s and got to low 900s, and about 930. Now we're back down to like 905 for Greater St. George. So it's just interesting to see on a weekly basis. The pendings are still there. They've been between 63 and 71 for the last almost all summer. They really haven't. I mean, there might be one outlier, when school started, something, they dropped, but
yeah.
I'm kind of waiting to see what the interest rates are going to do to the, on a weekly basis. And I'm assuming that most of those pendings were locked in a little bit under 8, but
yeah. So here's the thing. I know this is going to seem counterintuitive since you brought up interest rates, and there seems to be a lot of discussion in our industry about interest rates. My personal preference would be for there to be no change on interest rates for 2 quarters, because whether they're going up or coming down, it creates some challenges with people's mentality on buying. So going up, it's like, oh my gosh, can I afford it? If it's coming down, it's funny, they argue both sides of the coin. It's like, oh man, if I wait a little longer, I might get a lower interest rate, and it keeps people a little bit on the fence. What the market really wants to see is stability, right? And once people kind of see a pattern of, well, this is the new norm, then they kind of get off the schneid and start transacting again. Norm, did you have a comment?
Yeah, one thing I have noticed is that there's been a lot of, especially in new construction, that they're purchasing big dollar amounts on buy downs to get people to entice people. I just went through one, and Lifetime, I actually had them qualify through Lifetime, and in order to get their buy down from 7 down to 599, we had to use their lender, of course. So
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's kind of funny too. Two really good points there, Norm. One, it's kind of, as this year has evolved, right? We're almost ready to wrap up this year, but first quarter of this year, builders were still big on incentives. And then they kind of started to believe that the market was improving and not staying stagnant. And some of those incentives with some of the builders went away. And now that we've passed, August, which is kind of the seasonal change that we normally see, we're seeing more and more builder incentives come back into play, right? And just so you know, a lot of times, and it's not always the case, especially if it's a smaller builder who has a relationship with a bank, I promise you, they are way more interested in selling a house than protecting their relationship with their preferred lender. I've done this several times in the past where you go, listen, my people are already comfortable and qualified with this lender. Do you mind if I reach out to our lender and have them talk to you to see if you will offer the same incentive? And quite often that works. So don't be shy of that. We have what they call leverage in this current market with builders. So, all right, all good information. I wanted to start off with just showing you, you're all in luck today. Rapid stats on the MLS is actually down. I've already reached out to support, so I wasn't able to pull up the rapid stats portion, but I did want to share with you a couple of things really quickly. Not that. Let's see if I can get my. All right, here we go.
Hey, Matt, can I bring up something really quick?
Please do.
Just while you're doing that, it was just I was talking, but my mic wasn't on, so you didn't hear me. I had a client. I showed a buyer on Saturday. We're looking at some houses and we're looking at prices, and he came back with I'm just going to probably rent because Rocket Mortgage has his mortgage at 8.62%, and I'm like, first of all, I said I don't know why you're using Rocket Mortgage, but anyways, I talked to Danny, and I asked Danny last night at 8:32. I said, what are you seeing on lock loans for today? A 720 plus credit score and a primary residence, and he wrote back 7.5 to 7.75 if we're using an average LTV and DTI. So, I mean, I don't know. I was surprised because we talked about lenders before and why he went to making his decision based on what Rocket Mortgage was at and not his. So I sent him that message. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but
well, actually, Kyle, I'm actually really glad you brought that up because I think these are some of the things you just demonstrated what makes a better agent than just a good agent, and taking the time to do a little more investigation. I mean, if you were to plug that in, Kyle, into an amortization schedule and show that individual over 30 years what that additional point of interest is going to cost him, it will be astronomical. And usually that will get them to drop whoever they're currently using and come with a more motivated lender like Lifetime Home Loans. So, okay, wanted to talk about what's going on in the market, right? This is a time of year where we reset, we kind of rethink, and frankly, a lot of people are asking us questions. what's going on in the market. I don't understand. And being equipped with just a modest, simple level of data, I think is really helpful. So this is obviously, if you go on to utahrealestate.com, and in Washington County, you guys have very similar statistics. I'm sorry, I'm only going to show the one. But if you just come down here to the home sales graph, this is what you're looking at. And you can search on sold price, total number of homes sold, and listed. I'm going to take each one of those really quickly. I could do the whole state here, but it takes a little longer to crunch the data. And so I just went with Utah County. Do it in your respective county. I want to say something. I appreciate it. Bill Heiser kept me entertained on my drive down to California, at least part of it, having a discussion about some of the things we talk about on this call. And so I wanted to add a moment of Bill Heiser awesomeness and intellectual honesty. Stats are very helpful, but they're not the end all be all. And we need to make sure that we portray them in the right way. Don't ever come out with a stat and say, because it says this, it absolutely means this. It puts us in a ballpark. It puts some flesh on the discussion. It gives us some data points, but it's never 100% absolute. So just make sure as you talk with people, as you run your own numbers, Kyle, as you were talking about, and I applaud you for that. I think a good practitioner should once a week, and I like the Monday thing, come in and just, get a barometer on what's going on in the market so that you're ready for those questions, those golden questions, as I call them, and people can put trust in you because you know what's going on in the market. All right. Having said all that, this is since the first quarter of 2018, what has happened to the median sales price in Utah County. So we're all familiar with this, right? A very modest run up in value, right? Until we hit COVID. And then COVID really launched us off on a very accelerated track until we hit the high point in second quarter of 2022, which we all know is kind of when the market said, all right, enough. This is getting crazy. Pricing is high. Interest, and the Fed, coincidentally, had been raising rates and continued to raise rates. And then we saw a drop off for a year. I mean, we went down $70,000, right? $75,000 on a median sales price. But what have we done the last 6 months? We've gone from 470 to 500. And for any of those that want to do the math, that is a 6% increase in sales price in 6 months. So if you annualize that, if it were to continue, we know there's a seasonal change, but if you were to annualize that, it's a 12% increase in pricing. Okay, so let's stop there for a second. And I can talk all day long on this because I'm a stat geek, but I want to know from you guys, when you see that, when you see in particular this, what does that mean for you as you talk to your clients? What impactful data, how does that help you as you talk with your clients and help them in their decision-making process, whether they're a seller or a buyer? Anybody, take a stab at that. You're all just stupefied. You have no idea what the data means. let me ask.
We'll say something, Matt.
Yeah, Scott. Hey, Holly, what's going on? Go ahead, Scott.
Hey, if you're working with a buyer and you show them this, you can say prices are starting to go up. The rates aren't great, but you're not married to the rate. You can always refinance if the rates go back down. So maybe we should get in now and just refinance later.
What's the cute little phrase we have? Date the rate and marry the property, right?
That's right. Mhm.
Right. The equity that is going to build is going to outlast that interest rate.
Scott, you're like reading my mind, and it's literally a good chunk of what we're going to cover today. So thank you for that. And we didn't even coordinate. That was awesome. Yeah. So when people see this, listen, most of the public, and I say 99% of the public, doesn't know the data. They hear news snippets. They hear on, KSL at 6 o'clock, oh, the market is doing this or that or the other, or they read something in one of the newspapers or online. and they're very ill-equipped. We actually have the data. This is not hard to find, it's not hard to digest, and it's not hard to take it and put some meaningfulness to it for our clients. So I love what Holly said. You can sit there and say, let me just do this real quickly while I'm talking about this. I'm going to go back to 2007 on this particular data. It'll take a second to refresh. But you can say, yeah, you know what? The market did correct. Here's the thing. If you look at first quarter of 2012, that is when we hit the trough, the low point of the Great Recession, right? So here we were at the high point previously, and the median sales price was 224, and we went down to 175. We went down 50,000. Given the price point, that was a pretty big drop, right? But ever since then, if you hold real estate for the long play, not the short play, if you hold it for the long play, you can go through big corrections, and it's still in the long term is going to be a great benefit for you. All right, so there's the sold price. I want to hit two others really quickly. This is inventory, right? Quarter by quarter. And if you were to draw a straight line through here, you know, it is trending down, right? There's less and less inventory over the past 5 years. Partially that's because there's been a buying frenzy in 2020 and 2021, but also just fewer people are putting their homes on the market. And I made the note on here, if you never took an economics class, and you can see that if you were put a straight line through here, there's pretty much an average number of sales, kind of flat line, maybe a slight little uptick of the number of people buying. Supply and demand. If you have low supply, high demand, what does it do to pricing? It drives up pricing. All right. I wanted to jump from that really quickly to, I've got this on another sheet, sorry, give me a second. We covered this in our sales meeting. I'm not going to totally go through all of these, but I made some notes on this that I wanted to cover really quickly with you. This was a slide deck that was put together by Lifetime Home Loans, and it's really important for the discussion we're having today. And what I mean by that is, for the public who isn't normally engrossed in studying the real estate market, they only do it when they have a need to buy or sell. The data that's here is really helpful in the discussion. So this one I covered in sales meeting, which is, if you look at the past, literally there's 80 years of data here, 80 years. And out of those 80 years, if you got rid of 1990 and 1991, which were almost zero, there's really only been 5 years out of 80 that had a retraction on pricing, right? And then you can see for the 10-year spans, you know, how much the value went up for each of those 10-year spans. And it's incredible. That's why I say, if you're playing for the long game, there's just not really a better investment. The second slide, there's 4 that I wanted to briefly cover here. The second one was in regards to the people that have older guys like me, dads, saying, oh yeah, we're up against a housing bubble. And this is such a great slide because it shows in this column what the conditions were in 2008 versus what they are in 2022 and 2023. Unemployment significantly different. Total jobs, people employed, significantly different. There were subprime loans. I mean, I'm a beneficiary of subprime loans. Our house that we bought in 2004, I had what they call a no-no loan. No assets, no verification. How much do you make, Matt? I don't know, $1 gazillion. Okay, you're qualified. And I was able to get into my house. Well, although that was beneficial for me, when you do that across the entire country, it creates a lot of bad mortgage holders. Here's the big one, in my opinion. 5-year cumulative new home construction. So in 2008, in 5 years, they had created 7.65 million homes. And here we are, 15 years later, and we're 40% less. Again, goes back to the supply versus demand equation. And then here's the other significant one. 4 million homes were on the market at the time, and now we have under 1 million. You starting to see the problem here? It's not insignificant. It's actually very significant. So I just wanted to remind you of these slides, right? I would recommend you print these out and have them at the ready. The third one just kind of reiterates inventory, right? If you look at the past several years and you understand when there's low inventory and good demand, it drives up pricing. And here we are, significantly less than the previous 3 years as far as inventory. And then the last one is this, and it's going to lead to the latter portion of our discussion here. What are the experts, those that are neck deep, the geeks, the brains, the PhDs? The guy who did the Case-Shiller Index here won the Nobel Prize, for his economic discovery of how predictable this was. But the point being is, if you look at the far right column, they were anticipating, each of these different groups was anticipating growth in the market. Notice none of those were negative. And when you look at that, if I did my math right, it was something over 7% on average that was expected on the market. Now, isn't that interesting? When we go back to the home sales graph, this jump here was 6% in 6 months. So if anything, I think they are undershooting a little bit what actually is going to happen. Now, the last point on this slide is these same groups or organizations are projecting actually a higher pace of appreciation in pricing in 2024 on the condition that rates come down. And every expectation is that the rates are going to come down, barring some black swan event that we don't have a crystal ball for. All right. So any questions so far on any of those slides? Because I think it's imperative that you understand those. And if I were you, I would make sure that I reviewed these and understood them at a decent level, so that when somebody asks Clayton, what's going on in the market? You've got 4 solid slides to pull from here. And rather than just start regurgitating, I would turn the question around to whoever's asking that question, our sphere or a client we're working with, and say, well, tell me what you have heard is going on in the market, or what your concerns are. And they're going to lead you to where to go, right? And you'll have data to pull at the ready. Okay. Now listen, I'm driving this point home because I can't tell you how many times, whether it's sales meetings or on these calls or trainings, I strongly push for you to do some actionable item. And inevitably, I get a few calls from people who've actually been in the trainings, and it's almost like they didn't hear any of this. So your task today is, if you don't have this slide deck, reach out to your local Lifetime Home Loans person. They will get you access to this slide deck and get these 4 slides printed out, so they remind you what you can be talking intelligently with your clients and your SOI about. And one final note on this: it's not, we all have a sphere of influence to one degree or another, right? And some obviously have a larger sphere than others. But I hope that we're proactively communicating. I watch agents go through what I call the hamster wheel, right? They get on the wheel and they just start running, and hopefully it generates something in their business life. Please do not neglect your SOI. I don't care if you sold them a house 6 months ago. In fact, that's probably your best SOI contact. Reach out to them, be a human being, Ask them how the house is. Is there anything that you can, I know this takes a little exposure. Ask them if there's anything, you know, that you can help them with, right? Because when you're a giver, they tend to be a giver back. And then just say something along the lines of, hey, listen, I know you've got friends and family. You know, I would always take good care of them. I just want to make sure they're aware of what's going on in the market, and choose one of these data points and share it with them, right? High yield activity rather than just picking up and cold calling and hopefully finding somebody who's interested. Okay, fair enough. Take that action. Make sure you're proactively reaching out to your SOI, because there is a lot of confusion. There's a lot of, gosh, is this really a good time to be in the market? Okay. All right. Now, having said all that, I got to move my screens around here a little bit. I wanted to pull over here. Let me see if I can get this on screen now. All right. I hope, does everybody know what this is? Does everybody know what's on screen? Is that big enough? Maybe I should zoom in a little bit. This is a loan amortization
Amortization schedule.
Yeah, thankfully it was written right across the top, Scott. But you know what? I'm kind of dumbfounded, and that so many agents have never really delved into an Excel spreadsheet like this. And I get it. My wife's one of these people. She would be, if she was on this call, she would say, yep, I'm not a technology person. But over time, she's actually embraced this and utilizes this. This is such a powerful tool when we're dealing with our sellers and buyers, right? And it's to Scott's point, and what I want to do is kind of build the case here as to 3 or 4 things that I think we should focus on once we've had the initial question, what's going on in the market, and you get to some point where somebody's saying, well, I don't know if I should sell, or I don't know if I should buy, right? And I think if you've gone through this and understand it, and my hope today is by showing this to you that you'll be able to have that conversation comfortably and with confidence. So what I did here, these gray areas are areas we just plug in variables, right? So I took the median sales price of 500,000 and I assumed a 5% down payment, which is $25,000. So the amount that our mortgage is 475,000, 7.5% interest rate, 30-year loan, right? And what it does is it generates across, you know, here's payment number 1, and what our beginning balance is, and the next month what it is, and so on. It also shows us the total payment and the cumulative interest, right? And so let me ask it this way. Have you guys ever had somebody say, well, I just don't know if it's worth buying a house? Come on, raise your hand. Have you ever had that, or am I the only one? Okay. So Brian, what is your, and I don't mean, I guess I do mean to put you on the spot, but what is your normal reaction been in the past when somebody says, I don't know if it's worth it? Is it panic? Is it, do you have something loaded and ready to go? Or is it just a blanket statement of, well, you know, real estate's a good investment? What's been your experience or comeback?
Yeah, it's probably honestly been a little more of just a general statement of, you know, that real estate is one of the best ways to build wealth. That the equity that you earn over time is really powerful. So, you know, I think I could definitely polish that up and have some, you know, some recent statistics to point to.
So I appreciate your honesty, right? And that's not bad, don't get me wrong. But if I'm just uninitiated and you say, oh, well, it builds equity and blah, 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 you'd be surprised at how many people don't even understand what equity is, right? And so in marketing, and they don't mean this as a negative, a pejorative term, but you know, keep it simple, stupid, you know, take it to the lowest common denominator, and always remind yourself of that. The things that we know, don't allow yourself to assume somebody else knows. So the first thing I wanted to cover is the power of a leveraged investment. And the example I want to give to you is this. If you have $50,000, Brian, Norm, Savannah, if you got $50,000 that you could invest, you can do a number of things. I mean, right now, a lot of the credit unions are offering, over 5% on a 6-month CD. Okay, not bad. It's higher than it's been in a decade. If you took $50,000 and invested it into Microsoft stock and you got a 17% return on your money, you're killing it in the market, in the current market. 17% return on your money is pretty good, right? But I got my handy calculator here. If I took $50,000 times 0.17, 17%, that means I made $8,500, right? So my 50,000 is 58,500. Norm, go ahead.
If I had $50,000, I'd invest it in AIG.
Ayo, shameless plug by our AIG concierge. Nice, well played. Okay, and I think you guys know where I'm heading with this, right? If I had $50,000, let's stay with that, and the median sales price is $475, and on a conventional loan, I need 5% down, and let's say I have to have my closing costs and whatnot, right? I can take $30,000, 25 of it being down payment, 5,000 for closing costs, and still stay $20,000 liquid. And I now have an asset, a $500,000 asset that if the market goes up, I take the whole asset, not my $25,000. I take the $500,000 at 6% per year, and I made $30,000 in that year, not $8,500, right? The power of a leveraged investment, right? And especially when it's something you have to do anyway. This is not like a optional thing. You're either going to be a renter. Well, there's 3 options. You're either going to be annoying and live with your parents at home until you're 60, or you're going to be a renter, or you're going to be a homeowner, right? So it's really kind of a wash. You're either going to make a mortgage payment or you're going to make a rent payment. And wow, if you could get, $30,000 on a $25,000 investment in 1 year, you're crushing it. And I haven't even started to talk about the other legs. So point number 1, I want you to write down when you discuss with people, make sure you can articulate the power of a leveraged investment like real estate. You are writing up a huge asset, right? For a very low amount down. Can you imagine if I could go buy Microsoft stock for 5% down and it increases 17% and I get to collect on all the profits as if I had owned it? Whew, that'd be awesome. All right. The second point I want you to write down is, and this, we know this, but we don't articulate it. If you've ever been a renter, or if you're a landlord and have rentals, what I'm about to say, you all know is true. Rents go up. I can't think too many times in my life where I've ever seen rents go down. They go up. So I did some quick math here. Let me see if I can just share this real quick with you. If I were to assume $1,500 rent, right? A couple of my rentals in Springville are at that rate. They're 3-bedroom, 2 baths with a 1-car garage. And frankly, I'm undervalued on what I charge for rent, but it's because I have really good tenants who pay 5 days early every month. And so I'm okay to take a little less on rents to have such solid tenants. I never have any vacancies on those properties. But let's use 1,500 as an example for a minute. So in the first year, let me see if I can pull this over here. Can you guys see? Well, dang it, that's not going to work. 1,500 for the first month, or sorry, for the first 2 years. And let's assume that your landlord only increases rent every 2 years and it goes up 10%, which would be very modest. So in let's see, in years 1 and 2, you would pay $36,000. In years 2 to 4, $39,600. In years 5 and 6, it'd be $43,560. Blah blah blah. You get the idea. At the end of that, you have paid at the end of 10 years, you have paid $219,600 $784 in rent. Just let that sink in. Let's just say $220,000 in rent. What kind of return do you get on that, Brian? Bupkis, zero, nothing. There's no appreciation. There's no tax write-off. So again, point one is the power of a leveraged investment. Point number two is fixed rent for 30 years. There's no increase in rent, right? This just demonstrates the point. We all know it, but we don't actually put flesh on it so people can see it, right? Especially if you deal with a lot of first-time home buyers that are on the bubble. Show them this. Show them what they're going to pay in rent with just modest increases every 2 years, not every year. Most leases for a year, and they tend to go up yearly. All right, the third point that we talk about is the mortgage interest rate deduction, right? MID, private mortgage insurance. And we say it just kind of like, Brian, when you said equity, we talk about it as if everybody knows what it is, what it means, and what financial impact it has on them. And in reality, they don't. My experience is they don't. So if you were to take our example here of a $400,000 or a $500,000 house, or 475, I did some simple math here. You can see over here, I'll bold that. That's 10 years worth, 1 year's worth of interest on a median priced home of 500,000, 35,476 in interest. But what does that mean when it comes to the mortgage interest deduction? Hard for me to say. If we were to just make a few simple assumptions, if you're in the 15% tax bracket, right? That's neither high nor low. It's kind of middle of the road in our progressive tax code. What does that mean? If you break that down, if you take 475,000, which gives us the interest rate of roughly $35,000, and you multiply that times 15%, that's $5,250 that they didn't pay Uncle Sam in that year. If you take that write-off for $35,000 in interest, you at 15% tax bracket, you saved $5,250 in taxes. I don't know how to say that. I guess another way to say it is, if you didn't do that and you stayed a renter and you didn't have a write-off, you would be paying Uncle Sam $5,250 or $437.50 per month, right? And so the three things I want us to remember is not just the power of leveraged investment, but appreciation, right? I did one other calculation here, and it's on this spreadsheet. So I'm going to change tabs here. Let me zoom in so you guys can see that better. If the original price was 500,000, you put 5% down, or 25,000, and you expect the market to grow at a nominal rate of about 5% per year. We already showed that this year it's 6% in 6 months, so 12% annualized. So this is a very conservative number. The value of your property each year goes up and up and up, right? To where at the end of 10 years, rather than paying $220,000 in rent with zero return, you actually have $314,000 in appreciation in 10 years. Plus you take 10 years, you had roughly $53,000 in tax savings. So you add that to the 314, and you're now at 365. I mean, okay, so we're all on this call, and you all just saw it. And my question to you as practitioners are, how good are you at being able to share? I would never propose sharing all of this, but as you ask the questions, are you prepared to show them why they're really not smart to not get into real estate as early as they can? And I mean this honestly. In your experience with clients, what are some of the compelling arguments you have had to not get into real estate? Are there any?
It's not the right time. But you know what I tell them? I said, you know, it's great to know these numbers and everything, but it's better to act upon them. And I mean, right now, people look at me and they say, why are you buying real estate? And I said, well, it's because it's going to appreciate.
Yeah. Well,
and it does. It continues to do so.
You get people, and I'm going to throw Ron Snow under the bus here. You get people who, when they go to a casino, they go around and there's a slot machine and like, but I've been tracking certain things and now's going to be a good time. Now listen, Ron is uncannily good at this and does really well on the slots, but most people go in and they end up losing money by their guesstimating of when to time the slot, when to time the market. That's why I started off with, if you're in real estate for the long play, you saw the graph, you know, for the past 10, 12, well, what are we now, 15 years, it has done, predominantly gone up. A little hiccup here and a little hiccup there, but the trend is phenomenally upward. And so, you know, that old saying, when's the best time to plant a tree?
Today.
Nobody's ever heard that? When's the best time to plant a tree?
10 years ago.
20 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years, 20 years. 20 years ago. If you didn't do it 20 years ago, when's the best time to plant a tree? Today. It's very much true with real estate. Man, wouldn't it be great if we all had grundles of money and then invested in the trough of 2012 when everything was so low on pricing? But what are your options now? What is the public's general option right now? What are they, if they're waiting, what are they waiting for? I mean, the only thing that could bring down pricing is something catastrophic in the economy, which means they're probably out of a job, which means they're probably not going to be able to get a house anyway if the market did crazily correct like it did in 2012. So coming full circle, the best time for them to buy is now. And here's the fourth thing I didn't talk about. And it has to do with AIG and our affiliates, especially through Lifetime Home Loans. Scott and Holly brought up the topic, date the rate, marry the property. Right now, you have the ability to find a pretty good property just because there's not a lot of buyers out there because they're all nervous about the market. And builders, as was brought up by Norm, are offering incentives. Can you imagine if you were able to either upgrade the quality of the home you were buying or pay your closing costs or buy down the rate or any number of things? And I would say your least important one would be to buy down the rate right now, because Lifetime has told us over and over again in our sales meetings, when the market corrects, meaning the rates, when the rates correct next year, they're going to refi our clients that want to effectively for free. Now, again, that's minus the escrow funds that they can't pay for, but the cost of the loan and doing it, it literally lives up to date the rate and marry the property. Get the property you want now and do a correction. So just to demonstrate that. So here we are with $475,000 on our loan amount, and we can see that our total payment's $3,300 a month, right? If rates come back a point next year and they refi, you go from $3,300, you drop almost $320 per month, right? And that's $3,600 a year. Over 10 years, that's $36,000. Over the life of the loan, it's $100,000. That's big money, right? And so I wanted to make sure that we had this discussion today because my experience, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so I can see you guys better. My experience is kind of like we started off with. We all know these things. And I really want you to take an honest look at the way you present these things. And I'm like, am I doing my SOI justice? Am I doing my clients justice? Some of you are. I mean, you know, Kyle is demonstrating, hey, I'm checking the stats and the data, and I'm checking with lifetime home loan, see if I can get a guy off a rocking mortgage and save him a full point. That's what pros do. And when you do those things, you tend to do more deals. And so I'm trying to head off some discussions with some of you in the future, right? Like 4 months down the road, 6 months down the road, 12 months down the road, be like, gosh, Matt, I don't know, real estate's just not doing well for me. It was a lot easier in 2020 and 2021. I'm like, yeah, all you had to do was fog a mirror back then. But this is my proactive notice to you to sharpen the saw, get better at your presentation skills, not just how you smile and the words you use, and ask good questions, but also be prepared with the solutions. And so I gave you 4 today. I'm going to now pick people at random to see who took notes. Let's see. Don, what was number 1? Don Patton.
I tuned in late, so I did not hear number 1.
All right, I'll give it to you. It was make sure you can articulate the advantage of real estate being a leveraged investment, right? 5% down, and you write up the appreciation of the whole value of the property. All right. Scott, you're unmuted, so I'm going to pick on you for number 2.
I didn't take notes, but
Fixed.
what did you say? Oh, the fixed rate or what?
Fixed rent for 30 years.
Rent for 30 years.
Okay, got
Fixed rent for 30 years. We all know it. How many of you actually say that to somebody, especially a first-time home buyer? By saying that to them, you're providing a solution to one of their pain points, which is they've probably been a renter, they probably had rents increased and had to deal with that. And it's like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. That's right. My rent's fixed for 30 years. Okay. Number 3, it's a 3-letter acronym. Anthony looks too involved driving, but Anthony, do you remember what number 3 is? Has to do with taxes. It looks like he's in his Jeep 4-wheeling. He's bouncing all over the place. Oh, okay. No microphone. All right. Let's Don, do you remember number 3?
The mortgage insurance deduction.
Correct. Yep. And being able to do the math to show them to dollarize it. Remember, in your notes, take MID or PMI. They're both effectively the same thing. Private mortgage insurance or mortgage insurance deduction, and be able to dollarize it. Be able to show them what that means in real world dollars. Okay. And then the 4th one is make sure you are providing value and showing them why you at RE/MAX Associates in the ecosystem of AIG provides advantages, meaning date the rate, marry the property now. Don't wait. I'll finish with this. If your client's strategy is to wait until rates come down to 6.5%, what is the problem with that strategy in 2024?
May not.
Kelly?
They may not
They may not what?
come down.
In fact, if we understand the basics of economics, if we looked at inventory remaining relatively stagnant at a little bit lower level than normal, right? And all of a sudden, everybody's excited because rates are 6.5, which means more demand. What does that do to pricing?
Goes up.
It goes up. It's inevitable. It's like unavoidable. And so make sure you can paint that picture. Listen, and what I would do is paint their competitors, meaning the other buyers, into a corner. Listen, you can be one of the unknowing buyers, and you can have the strategy, although it sounds rational, it's actually irrational. If the strategy is to wait until rates come down when inventory is staying the same, it's going to drive prices up. I mean, in this year, when that hasn't happened, where rates haven't gone down, we went up 6% in the last 6 months. What do you think it's going to do when there's twice as many buyers in the market? What's it going to do to pricing? Right?
Gonna be,
Ask them the rhetorical question, get them thinking. Go ahead, Kelly.
gonna be nuts. Let's go.
It's going to be nuts. And so then be prepared to provide the solution. And the solution is date the rate, marry the property. Let's get you into a property today while there's builder incentives, while sellers are more motivated, and get the property you want today and watch all the crazy people next year. And Lifetime Home Loans is going to refi you for free next year. So you're still going to get the benefit of 6.5%. Right? Yeah, it's going to cost you a few bucks, but compared to the amount you're going to save by getting in today, this really is the strategy. So I told you today was going to be different. Maybe you're thrilled that we didn't go through a contract specifically, but when we're in this phase of the year where we're kind of retooling and looking forward to 2024, my real hope for you today is to take this seriously. Go find that slide deck, get those 4 slides, find an amortization spreadsheet. If you can't find one, send me an email. I'll send you the one I use. Get familiar with it, and then practice your brief dialogues in talking people through those 4 things that we just covered, right? And I think by doing that, people see you as a true practitioner who's good at their craft, understands all the angles, not just the stats, not just the contracts, but actually what it means in real financial terms for them and how they can build wealth and better their family and their financial position and everything. That's what people are looking for. This is why when the disruptors came into our industry over the past 5 years, we're going to make this all a click function on a website. That's why they're all struggling, right? Is because people need all of these angles that we just talked about today, and understanding and help and getting the help they need in understanding all those components. This is why we have jobs. We're partially in the pain business, and we're also in the remedy business. We show them some of the pain points, and then we give them the remedy. So I think if you do that, coupled with always my advocating for understanding your contracts and how you can use those tools to benefit them in that process of buying a home or in selling a home, man, then you really are providing value. And if you really provide value, you won't just sell these people, you'll sell them. I've used this example before, and I think several of the people on the call who've been in the business for a long time. It's fantastic when you have a client that ends up coming back to you over a 10, 12, 15-year period, and you've sold them 7 homes. It's not just the financial component of that, you guys. What does that make you feel like as a professional? It's like, wow, somebody really trusts me, really values what I bring to the equation, what I bring to the table, and it also lines up some dollars. And that's when the business really is fun. It couples the monetary value with the intrinsic value, and you feel good about what you're doing and bettering people's lives and helping them build wealth. I hope we never lose sight of that, right? Don't get target fixation on just your commission check. That'll come. If you do this right, the checks come. All right, Norm, anything you want to add to that? Can I get an amen?
Amen. Matt, can I just say something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
You know, I know there's a lot of veterans on the call. They're probably practicing everything that you just said, but there's probably some newbies too that are just thinking, wow, you know, I'm concentrating on making that monthly check, you know, filling up my coffers, but don't excuse me, don't be afraid to reach out to any of the veterans and ask them to help you. How can they help you build up your wealth? Because we've been around here. We no longer have the fear of taking that first step. You just got to do it. You got to save money and set a goal to buy at least 1 new property per year.
Yeah. Yep. I'm glad you said that, because that's going to be a component of our upcoming sales meeting next month, is the investment angle. So important. So thanks, Scott. And you're right. We have, one of the great things about our brokerage is we really do have so many seasoned veterans. And I would say this, I consider myself a seasoned veteran. I've been doing this 23 years. I know there's people that have done it longer. But I have to even remind myself to sharpen the saw, right? I have to come back to my dialogues, make sure I'm not assuming people know things, make sure that the way I explain it, I periodically bounce off people who have no experience to make sure they'll give me feedback to where I might be missing it. But yeah, for the newer people on the call, I don't care if you're 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, there's still a lot to be learned from the collective brain trust that is in this company. So good point, Scott. Norm, anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to ditto what Scott and you both said. This has been a really good meeting. You know, a lot of what I've seen over the years, is, our growth that we've done just in our company. We've got a lot of stretch marks, because we've grown so fast. But I think that's the key, is when we all get busy, we forget what we're supposed to be doing. And then all of a sudden we don't have any business. And then we start all over from scratch. And so, asking for help. I bounce stuff off of Kelly Schulberg all the time. Don, we talk a lot, about going back and forth, because sometimes you just get so wrapped up that you forget the basics, and throwing a coin in on AIG, that's one of mine and Kelly's responsibilities, make sure that we get a good fluid transition with all of these, and it's, you don't have to use any of our companies, but it's sure convenient, and we're trying to have everybody and somebody in every office, and that's what we're striving for. So to make your job easier and to where you don't have to worry about as much. So that's it.
That's such a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up, and it's a good one to finish on. Never lose sight of how important our ecosystem is. And I don't mean for us. That's there for sure. It is convenient to have lending and title in almost every one of our offices, and somebody to go literally walk down the hall and ask a question and get quick resolution. But also remember, we have access to the heads of each of these organizations, right? To troubleshoot issues and to actually bring solutions to, and we don't typically get that from outside companies. You want to know why? Because they answer to us, because we are agent owned. And the whole point of that, in my estimation, is to make sure that our clients have fantastic experiences. That's what I see the value of AIG is. If our clients have fantastic experiences, or if they get in a jam and we provide a solution, we're starting to develop lifelong customers. And like I said, that's when it's fun. When you start selling somebody multiple properties, when they start branching out and saying, yeah, you got to take care of my son and just got married. You got to take care of my kid, needs a condo, he's going to college, or even out of state, and you can refer them. This is when the business is fun and you really feel good about what you're bringing to the table. So go forth and conquer, do well, be a good human being, treat people well, know your craft. Okay. Thanks for being on the call, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Matt.
Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Good class.
Thank you.